2.5 minutes.
The gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank my good friend from Michigan. Mr. Chairman, for the 173rd time this year, our friends on the other side have brought another anti-environmental, anti-public health bill to the floor. For good reason, this House majority has been identified as the most stridently anti-environmental Congress in history. In a tragic recantation of Republicans' heretofore historic commitment to conservation and public safety. The REINS Act, like the Regulatory Accountability Act, passed last week, has a poetic finality as it would block any and all progressive regulations, largely the legacy of Republican Teddy Roosevelt. Under Teddy Roosevelt's administration, in response to appalling food processing conditions described in Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, Congress reacted and passed the first comprehensive food safety regulation. 100 years later, the REINS Act on the floor today would block even the most common sense regulations, which Congress mandated just last session. New standards to protect Americans from deadly contamination of Chinese and Mexican imported foods. The REINS Act is a worthy piece of legislation for those among us who actually believe that Chinese factory farms should ship contaminated, uninspected food directly to American dinner tables. President Teddy Roosevelt used the Antiquities Act, written by a Republican congressman, Congressman Lacey of Ohio, to protect the Grand Canyon, and thank God they did, when Congress at that time refused to designate it as a national park. The REINS Act would prevent federal land management agencies from issuing regulations to protect America's greatest places from degradation by mining and off-road vehicles. The REINS Act also would block all regulations issued subsequent to the Roosevelt administration, I mean Teddy Roosevelt, including such landmarks bill as the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the Wagner Labor Relations Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act, along with the Regulatory Accountability Act, which the House approved last week. The REINS Act is the most comprehensive, radical assault on American safety and public health in the last century. If REINS passes, it will replace the rule of law with the rule of the jungle. And our friends on the other side know full well that in common sense language they have masked the inability of the federal government ever again to issue common sense regulation to protect public health and safety in this country, and that would be a tragedy.
Time's expired.